With the release of Phantom Liberty, I thought it'd be a good idea to rewatch Edgerunners and see if it's still as good as I remembered. Plus, now that I do video essays, it's just a really good excuse for me to get a video out about something that I really love. This is not a psyop for you to buy the DLC, I swear to God. Edgerunners will always have a special place in my heart because it's the show that got me into anime. Growing up, I absolutely despised anime. I had always seen it as something loud, stupid, and utterly obnoxious. This attitude stemmed from the fact that as a kid, I had never seen the classics. I never watched Sailor Moon because that show had girls in it and I'm deathly afraid of those. I never watched Space Dandy or Cowboy Bebop because my mom walked in on me while this one scene was playing. And she forbade me from ever watching the show ever again. So the only anime I was left with as a kid was Dragon Ball. And I'm sorry if I'm about to offend a lot of people here because I know hundreds of thousands of people have very good and nostalgic memories about that show, but for me, every single episode was just 15 minutes of fully adult men yelling at each other like they were constipated on the toilet. Anyway, I hated Dragon Ball. And at the time, I thought it was the peak of anime since all of my friends would constantly hype it up. From that bad experience, I just brushed off anime for most of my life until it became mainstream. And no matter where I went or who I was with, I'd constantly hear about how good anime was. So I decided to look up what was popular at the time, and I came across Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I was skeptical about it at first, especially because of the dumpster fire that was Cyberpunk 2077, released 2 years prior. But my friends kept vouching for it, and I saw thousands upon thousands of 5-star reviews everywhere I looked, so I pulled the trigger. And immediately, I was blown away. Whoa! What? Oh, she's a ghost and a bitch! Before we talk about the anime, I want to talk about the game really quickly. 8 years before Cyberpunk's initial release, CD Projekt Red put out a trailer for the game that generated a level of hype never seen before in the gaming industry. And at the end of that trailer was the release date, coming when it's ready.
So that was a fucking lie.
They continued to fan the flames a few years later when they released a 48-minute video of raw, uncut gameplay. The game looked absolutely amazing and the level of hype had never been higher. And then the game actually dropped. Cyberpunk had the worst launch in video game history. No matter where you went or looked, any content being made on the game were either complaints about the bugs or the performance or just a giant rant about how CD Projekt Red scammed their audience out of their money. Everything that I saw had scared me so much that I never bought the game until I watched Edgerunners. And now that I've watched the show a second time, having finished the game, I've come to the conclusion that Edgerunners is the most faithful video game to screen adaptation I have ever seen. Everything you see in the show you can do in the game. These laser whips that Lucy has, you can use those. How about Maine's arm cannon? You can use that too. David's Sendevistan is a no-brainer, and even the shotgun that Becca leaves behind in the park can be found within the game. That's amazing. It was a real treat to go around Night City and recognize locations that I saw in the show. The show only stood to elevate my experience when I played the game. Okay, let's talk about the show. The first thing that stood out to me while watching the show was the cast. Every character is incredibly unique and their designs alone scream personality. Lucy, Maine, David, Becca, Kiwi, Pilar. One look at any of these guys and you can tell exactly who they are and what kind of people they'll be. Lucy has short hair because she's crazy. Becca is short because she's loud as shit. And Pilar has gigantic hands because he likes groping women and jerking off. Did I seriously put this in the script? The show is about a kid named David Martinez. He grew up poor in a crime-ridden place called Night City. His mom spends all day and night hustling to send him to a good school. Her dream is that her son will climb the corporate ladder and stand tall atop Arasaka Tower. One day as they're driving down a highway, they get caught in the middle of a drive-by and David loses everything. He starts to realize that the only way to survive in this world is to be a criminal, so he joins the Edgerunners, a group of mercenaries that steal stuff for their handler, Faraday. They mod themselves and replace their bodies with weapons and machines to make sure they don't die during a job. But there is a catch. Cyberpsychosis. This one concept is where the show separates itself from the game and transcends it in quality. In the game, you can mod yourself as much as you want without consequence. But in the show, the more you mod yourself, the closer you push your own mind towards insanity. And it's not as simple as just saying, hey, why don't you just stop modding yourself? Because if you don't, you die. So every time somebody in the show chooses to mod themselves, it's an extremely complex decision that has an incredible layer of depth to it. Whether they're modding themselves to run away from something, to make someone proud of them from beyond the grave, to escape their old life, or, well, you already know why Pilar does it. You get this feeling that it's not an easy choice. It takes a toll on every single one of them to make this choice. I was absolutely blown away on my first watch of the show, and upon my second, I started noticing the amount of care and passion that was put into it. Every shot is beautifully vibrant, and there's little animation gags here and there that you'll miss if you even take a second to blink. Take this one scene for example. Main is rizzing up his girl, and he does this little mechanical extension thing with his arm. This happens literally once in the entire show. You don't add little things like that, which are easily missed by most of your audience if you don't care about your work. You do it because you love what you do. In contrast, let's take a look at something like Record of Ragnarok. This show is meant to be an epic boss rush of an anime. Every episode consists of humans challenging gods to keep their place on the earth. Despite it being an anime where 90% of it consists of fighting, the fights are incredibly lackluster, boring, and lazy. There are scenes where giant impacts or flashy moves are meant to happen, and instead of drawing those impacts and movements, they just take a still frame and shake it around. Now compare that to this. I've literally seen better animation than Record of Ragnarok flipping through a Captain Underpants comic book. The show is soulless, and it's very obvious that it was made to fulfill a deadline. The only good thing that's ever come out of Record of Ragnarok is this one scene.
Everything is just as he says.
You can see the gigantic reasons why, right? What I love most about this show is its deeply layered storytelling in combination with the extremely adult story that it tells. A lot of media tend to have this trope where the good guys win literally no matter what. Edgerunners is nothing like that. The show is grounded and it doesn't hold any punches. The characters you grow to love and care about end up dying terrible, gruesome deaths. No other scene demonstrates this more perfectly than the final battle between David and Adam Smasher. David resorts to using his Sandevistan, his ultimate trump card, the one thing that's won him every single fight up until this point in the story. And then it turns out that Adam has it too. Upon seeing this, David knows that it's over, and instead of fighting fate, he makes the ultimate sacrifice to save the one person that he truly loves. The pacing of the show is done beautifully well. At the end of the final episode, I felt like I had lived an entire lifetime in David's shoes. That's a feeling that I rarely get from watching a show or playing a video game. And it's amazing that Edgerunners was one of the only shows that was able to invoke that feeling in me. Because of the show, I haven't been able to look at Night City in the same way. I'm constantly reminded of the pointless tragedy that was Edgerunners. And sometimes a certain song comes on in the background when I'm driving a car or inside a bar, and I can't help but shed a tear and wonder that if I were in their shoes, would I have done anything different?
I couldn't wait for you to come and clear the cupboard. But now you're gone and leaving nothing but a sign. Another evening I'll be sitting reading in between your lines, because I miss you all the time. So